Now, our next guest is someone I've interviewed and known over the years, a man of, I think, enormous intellect and wisdom, a former chief science advisor to the Prime Minister and a scientist, a man with a brain who has issued some warnings in his writings of where New Zealand society is at and maybe the world society is at. And I think certainly after the events of Saturday, gosh, even after just talking to Bryce Edwards today, after the Prime Minister's response and obfuscation at his media conference yesterday, after the police launching a task force to find out who hit Mara Davidson with a bike rather than who perpetuated all that violence on other women, I think it's a good time to talk to Peter Gluckman. Peter, welcome to the program. Do I put Professor, Doctor, Lord in front of that? What is it? You're Sir Peter Gluckman, aren't you?
I'm just Peter.
Yeah, I thought that'd do. How are you anyway?
Oh, I'm fine. I think that, we're into a year in which a lot of issues are going to come to the surface and we need honest conversations.
Yeah, we do. Peter, look, I can ask you on the speakerphone.
Yes.
Could you come off
I
it?
can go off it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Can,
it's a bit booming. It's a bit booming, mate.
Is
That's
that
all.
better?
That's way better. It's like you're in the room with me now. Peter, it is an election year. But these issues of cancellation, of groupthink, of hate speech, of free speech, have been bubbling under the surface of New Zealand and the world society for 15 or 20 years, really since, I think, the explosion of social media, right?
Well, I think it goes back further than that, actually. We've got to remember that rights come with responsibilities. So that rights include the right to free speech. Responsibilities come with the responsibility not to aggravate and cause tensions unnecessarily. And what we have to have is a process in any society by which people who disagree can resolve their differences civilly. By definition, any society is full of people with different worldviews.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of a democracy...
Well, any free society, Peter, any free society, right? There are societies that do not allow that, like North Korea.
Well, wait on. There are only two kinds of large-scale society or ways of organising large-scale societies. One is by autocracy, by forms of dictatorship which determine what people can and cannot do and remove their agency, or there's societies which are try to be democratic. And democracy requires two things. It requires trust and accountability between those who are elected to govern and the citizens, but it also requires trust between people who have different worldviews on how decisions will be made. And I think that requires us to remember that societies only work and stay cohesive when those discussions are civil and not ad hominem and discuss the issues, not play the ball rather than the person, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't say man in a gendered way. Peter, where are we at, though? And because I don't think we're there, your utopia does not exist. And indeed, it seems to be receding into the rear vision mirror.
Your analysis is right, in part. Your analysis is right that social media has greatly expanded the capacity of bubbles at the extremes and polarization to occur. It happened before social media, but social media with its anonymity and with its ability for short, aggressive ad hominem attacks aggravated it.
Yeah.
To that we must add disinformation, which is much easier to provide now than it was many years ago, and the fact that there are both internal and external players that can manipulate the situation.
Yeah.
And that we know now that the narrative can be weaponized in ways that can undermine a society.
Yeah. And I guess from my perspective, Peter, one of the disappointments is that our mainstream media are part of that problem. And they are purveying, gaslighting and telling false narratives, as are the people for example, from the Disinformation Project.
Well, I'd have to say, everybody is at fault. I think every radio station of any ilk, every TV, every media plays the extremes and not to the middle. And I think, and so it's very complex here. We've got ourselves into a situation where technology has empowered people to perform and enter and make statements which rapidly project around the community in ways that are not helpful. And so we don't know a way back from this, or it's not an obvious way back from it, other than promoting critical thinking, promoting an intolerance for ad hominem attack within our community.
Okay. Well, where do we start doing that? Because it would strike me that the biggest media should be the places where it starts. But we have Television New Zealand News, for example, labelling this woman, Posey Parker, as an anti-trans activist, misnaming her deliberately.
I'm not going to comment on her.
Well, but hang on, Peter. Where do we start if we don't start somewhere?
No, we start with the fact that our political leadership should be more mature.
Right. Okay, you say
actually, we start from the top. We start from the top, and that does include the institutions of government and the institutions of the fourth estate, because the fourth estate is a critical part of an effective democracy. And all elements of the fourth estate, including your own, have elements of being guilty.
Yeah, well, Peter, my problem, I'll be honest, I'm quite happy to take the platform as an example. I've been a journalist for 40 years. I've been lucky enough to hold some of the most esteemed roles in media in New Zealand in that time. I now live in a world where no Green MP will talk to us because James Shaw, because he thinks I'm a Nazi, basically, has placed a blanket ban on anyone from the Greens talking to the platform. The Prime Minister's office has essentially done the same, though strangely enough, when he wasn't the Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins broke the rule and did talk to us. So I am cancelled. The platform is cancelled by a group of people whose views I want to hear, and I want to give them the opportunity to impart those views to my audience, which is growing and strong and very committed. So what do I do in a situation where I have been cancelled by a large segment of our political establishment?
Well, I can't answer that because I don't listen to your radio station.
No, but you're good enough to appear on it, Peter, without being told that you're a Nazi.
Well, no, because I believe that civil discourse between people that don't necessarily agree with each other is the only way to progress a society. I doubt that you and I agree on a number of things. I don't know.
Yeah.
But if we don't, we can still have a civil discourse.
Yeah.
And in that discourse, you hopefully will have an open mind, and I will hopefully have an open mind. And over time, if society works with civil discourse, society can progress. I mean, the essence of a good democracy is that consensual pathways are found and the interests of the minority are protected as much as the interests of the majority.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
So.
Couldn't agree more,
Peter. If the processes work well, then even if I don't agree with if I don't agree with the outcome that's achieved by the democracy, at least I feel my voice has been heard, and I feel the process has been fair in the decision that's been made.
Yeah.
It's when people don't feel that they've been included in a conversation that they get angry at the decisions that are made.
Yeah.
And I think one of the issues that I'm particularly interested in is making sure that our conversations are more inclusive and more civil.
I'm trying, Peter, I promise. How do you feel? What was your emotional reaction, I guess intellectual reaction, to the events that unfolded in Albert Park on Saturday?
Unnecessary on all accounts. I mean, people's individual identity is their individual identity. And, that shouldn't be a matter that societies get wound up in the way that they have. It's unnecessary. The whole thing was unnecessary on both sides. The basic principles of human rights are that people should have agency to express their identity. End of story.
Women as well, eh?
Everybody. I mean, including people whose
And if
gender
it is
identity
expressing your
is different.
identity, saying, I want my own space based on my biological gender, that's a valid point of view, eh?
Everybody is entitled to have their identity and be comfortable in their identity.
Yep.
Everybody should respect the diversity of identities that exist in every society.
I couldn't agree more, Peter. I just want to get you to admit that biological women are allowed to express their identity by saying we don't want non-biological women in spaces preserved for us.
I'm not going to get into that discussion.
Well, why the hell not, Peter? Why, if that's expressing their identity, don't they have as much right to express that as someone who says, I want to be in that space?
Yes, they do, provided they're doing so in a way that respects other people.
Okay, so standing on a rotunda in a public place with a microphone and just saying that, what's disrespectful about that?
Well, but you know, and I both know that it was that on both sides there was political activism.
No, I don't. I know that a housewife who's been successful on social media in Britain wanted to come out here and get together with some other women and say, this is what I think on this issue.
I don't think you and I are going to agree on this.
Well, have you got any evidence, Peter? Have you got any evidence that it's anything other than that?
I didn't want to come on to discuss this with you in
but
detail.
You did, Peter, and this is what's having a discussion is. Sometimes they're difficult, and I appreciate that you're here.
Exactly, and I'm saying to you that I believe that on both sides of that situation, it was being wound up to be a contentious issue which did not need to be contentious. There are many trans people in this country who go on and live their lives very well.
I would say the vast majority, actually, Peter. The vast majority.
And it did not need to be wound up in the way it was by either party. Now,
well, I'm not sure that Posey Parker wound it up. I'm pretty sure our news media and our government wound it up.
That I don't know, and that's your view. I can't answer that.
Peter, are you saying that Posey Parker and the numerous other New Zealand women who were physically assaulted and terrified on Saturday were basically asking for it?
No, I'm not saying anything like that. And this is, again, the kind of discussion that I don't think is very helpful. I think the real issue here is a good society respects diversity within it. And that includes people such as people on both sides of that debate. They did not need to get into an aggressive situation on either side.
I didn't see anyone from Posey Parker's side pushing anyone from the counter-protest side.
This was not a matter that needed to go the way it did.
No.
I think that we have done a very
because
good
if
job
the counter-protesters hadn't got violent, there wouldn't have been violence, right, Peter?
The rainbow community, which I'm really proud that New Zealand
and Peter, what I'm hearing from you basically, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you because we are having a discussion, you have got a view that leans to one side of this argument, Peter. And it seems to me you are... I don't actually... I just don't like seeing people being violent to each other.
You have an identity. Your political opinion might be difficult to mine.
I don't have political opinions. I'm a journalist.
No, they come off it. Everybody has their own values, biases.
I don't know. I just like a drink, and I probably do that too much, and I think it's a free country, and I've never met a person I didn't like.
I hope that's true. But the point I'm making is simply, I think there are many people in this country who are uncomfortable with the concept of mixed gender, if that's what it is, or conflated situations. However, from my point of view, I'm very comfortable that people who have confused gender identity find their place in the world.
Me too.
And I want to have a society in which these people feel safe, but I also want other people to feel safe. So if there's concerns on the other side, then these need to be talked through.
Will you condemn the violence perpetrated against women on Saturday or not, Peter?
Pardon?
Do you condemn the violence perpetrated against those women in Albert Park on Saturday?
I think violence should never be part of any protest or any demonstration.
So you condemn the violence perpetrated against those women and those people on Saturday?
Well, also, Marama got also...
Oh, Jesus Christ, Peter. I mean, really, are you looking to out-victim?
I think you're trying to take...
No, I'm just trying to get you to live in the real world, Peter, and I've got great respect for you, but you are the perfect example. You are the perfect example of what's gone wrong with this country, and that you are so afraid of not being politically correct or woke, you cannot simply say the truth.
The truth is simple. Violence should never be part of any demonstration.
Right.
Full stop.
Yeah. Yep. Well, hey, we agree on something, Peter. Maybe we've done a bit for freedom of speech and civil society. I thank you so much for your time.